live.
Farts. Old farts. Two old farts. Steve and Dave. Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. Not this time, though. This is just rough. Two old farts. There is no better waste of time. Two guys. Two old guys. A lot of BS and more drivel than you can shake a stick at. Steve and Dave. God help us.
And we are here. Hello, David.
Yeah. Hello, Steve.
We have an interesting show coming up today.
Yeah, well, it's another classic. I mean, this is like it's getting to be a habit again.
I know it's like we don't have the other 30 shows apparently anymore. We do all the interviews again. No, but we have an interesting show. We have, and I'm not making fun of him. So, and he's in the green room listening. We have a man of faith. So we're going to try to keep our language to a minimum. So just because we don't want to offend him, but his name is Carl Grant III. Apparently the first and the second just didn't make it, and they're like, we got a third. There you go. So if he has a son named Carl Grant IV, there's about 20 minutes of jokes. But Carl is a successful business owner that over the course of his career has done a whole bunch of things. We're going to ask him about it. But the things that interest me, being a venture capitalist and family office guy, he's the CEO of Capital Raise, a SaaS platform that connects private capital market ecosystem to founders. And it's a whole thing, and his bio we'll put down below so people can read it. But we're really going to talk to him about is a book that he wrote. It's called How to Live an Abundant Life. So I think it's I read it. Wow. I looked through it. It's very fascinating. I didn't see anything about scotch and cigars, but I'm sure there's an oversight. But I'm sure we can get that chapter included in my version. Just like in my Bible, it says terrible things. Go ahead.
Did he say anything about getting old then?
He said it's too late for you. But I still love you. So there you go. What are you going to do? That's smart. I know what are you going to do. So let's bring in Carl because nobody wants to hear us. They hear us all the time. No. So we'll bring in Carl. Carl, welcome to 2OF Classics.
You guys don't need to change your language for me. To be clear, I served in the United States Army and I know all the curse words. I just try not to use them anymore.
Okay. So we invented a few. So we have a whole bunch of new ones, so it'll be really great for you. But no, we'll try.
We use them very creatively in the Army. You couldn't imagine how many ways the F word can be used.
Yes, I'm aware. I come from Wall Street. We made F, and I come originally from New York City, so we use the F and the C word like a comma. So for us, it's like not a big deal. So wait, before we go into your book, tell us more about your capital raise platform and whatnot, just for those people and what you're doing in that area. And I see that you were with PwC. So let's talk a little about your background, and then we can talk about how you, I don't want to say converted, but how you went from where you were to how you wrote this book.
Yeah. So basically I was in professional services business development most of my career. First business development hire at Price Waterhouse Coopers and global head of business development at Cooley, international law firm. Grew it from 310 million to over 2 billion in annual revenue. And in doing those jobs, I figured out the best way to ingratiate yourself to emerging tech companies and life sciences companies is to connect them with investors. Every entrepreneur needs customers and investors. And so I just became the super connector who made all the connections, and everybody loved me because I got them funded. So when I decided to leave after 20 years in that role, rather than let all those relationships languish, I teamed up with my son, Carl Grant IV, that is. And
I knew.
You know what? It's handy to have a...
Is this a Christian thing? Do you have to name every child? Like 20 years from now, is there going to be Carl Grant the 738th, or how's this working in the family?
It has nothing to do with Christianity. I
just want to be sure.
I didn't want to be the one to end it.
I was going to ask you
my son doesn't want to be the one to end it. So if he's so blessed as to have a boy, he's going to call him Carl Grant V. And, if the next one wants to break the chain, it's up to him. There's nobody telling him he's got to do this. Yeah. But I tell you what, when you go into business with your son, it's helpful because I went into business with my dad early on in my career. And so when I was a young guy in my 20s, I would tee up business meetings and then send my dad in with the gray hair to go close the deals. And so, it's a little bit of the same stuff here. So we took my entire investor network and built it onto a platform. Think of a LinkedIn-like platform. But
Right.
if you go out looking for an investor as an entrepreneur, good freaking luck finding the one who's going to be a fit for your company. And then even better luck trying to get an introduction to that person,
Right.
because they don't want your cold emails. They're going to ignore you. And so what you need somebody to show you who's the right fit and then give you a warm referral. And so we have a platform that delivers a tech-enabled service. And that is, it's not for pre-revenue startups. It's for, entrepreneurs that have about $1 million in annually recurring revenue or more. And so they're busy. These are busy people. They don't have time to stop running their business, stop doing sales to go raise capital. So we've been doing this. I've been doing it for 25 years. Is you pay us like you would an outsourced CFO, and we'll run the process for you. We'll get you the warm introductions, and all you got to do is do the meetings. We coach you up for it. We get you ready, and then we even advise you as you're talking to the investors. I've done this so many times that I can do it myself. So I can tell them what type of things they should be talking about, what not to say. Try to get them from not doing the things that will get them automatic no's. And then if they need, eventually they're going to need a good attorney. And I know plenty of attorneys, and I could make those introductions. So we kind of hold their hands.
Very cool. Well, there's a company that's a sponsor of ours. I don't know if they're on this one, but it's called Huro, Huroai. And they're actually doing the same thing, but using AI. They just came out. So they're kind of doing what you're doing, but not just for funding, but for other things as well on a larger scale. And they seem to be doing really well. As we've put you guys together, it could be very interesting for you guys to all talk.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you. So we got to figure out how to incorporate AI into what we do. We have a matching algorithm. The challenge is when it gets to the referral, the investor referral,
right?
I haven't heard investors say they're willing to take an AI generated introduction. That's the challenge. They like to get that introduction from somebody they know and trust. And so maybe there's a way to crack the code. And if they've
done it with their team apparently. So they're thrilled to death about that. But we can talk about that after the show. That's a whole nother show. We should put you guys on. You guys can go through it, but a whole AI show. But they've done that, and I think it's interesting. But that's why when I saw your background, I was very interesting, because I do what you do. I'm an old school investment banker, right? So I have people now that call me as I run my own family office and go, can you help raise money? Can you do this? Can you do that? And to a point, yes, it is the press the flesh. Oh, I know, Steve, I'll take your call. And then a lot of times you have to go to conferences and whatever and run around and press the flesh for them and have people say yes, no, or indifferent. So a lot of people don't understand the work behind it. And it's not like a 1 or 2 or 3 month or 5 month process. It's 6 months to a year to 2. I mean, it's a long drawn out. That's why people have directors of capital, right? Their job is to go out and always press the flesh and look for money and look for deals and this and that. So a lot of people don't understand that. So I saw your background. I was like, yeah.
So guys, is this then the end of the black book then, the famous black book? Or are you still digging into that? You want to automate everything? You want to get...
Not for dating. He's talking about it for raising money.
So I used to do it in a manual way. We'd have lists, and it was very tedious.
The Rolodex.
What caused me to do this is COVID. Right during COVID, the number of entrepreneurs that couldn't get out to conferences to meet investors. I mean, that was everybody. And so what they needed to do was meet well-connected people who could get them proper introductions to funds. So I went from helping 1 or 2 entrepreneurs a week to literally had hundreds of them in my inbox. And I'm like, how in the world can I manage this? It was unmanageable. So that's when I teamed up with the software development team, and I sketched this thing out, and then they built it for me, and it solved a problem that I had. And then we turned it into a business.
Very cool. And he also lives in the same city I live in. So who knew?
Are you in Austin?
Yeah, I'm in Austin. I'm right. Actually, I'm looking in your window right now. I'm in the car outside. We really like to know our guests. Yeah, I'm in Austin, so we can talk after that. So anyway, that's very cool. So for the people that are looking to raise money, reach out to us and we can put you in touch with whoever you want to be in touch with. That's a whole nother show. But for now,
but this is just for the US. I take it. This is not for people who are looking for money, looking for people, investors in the US, or are you helping people get investment?
We do have some international clients. I tell you, my investor network's a lot stronger in the US. we are partnered with an international firm that does cross-border transactions. So we have ways of teaming up to do these things.
And once again, it's like if the longer you've been in, I've been doing this is probably a little longer than he has. The longer you're doing it, your book, for lack of a better term, or your list gets bigger, and then you're selective on who you take. Mine is you call me if I like you, we're going to discuss it. If I don't like you, I'm like, no, I can't help you. And I don't care if they're looking for $1 or $1 billion. And what people also don't understand is even if you're going to raise 5 million or 500 million, it takes the same amount of work to raise both. And that's what people like.
Yep.
One group said, I want to raise this much. I'm like, a real estate group. And I was like, yeah, but you really need this much. And they're like, oh my God, but we'll never. I go, you can close your round in chunks. And they're like, oh. And a lot of them just think if you say, I'm going to raise 250 million, if you don't raise 250 million, you can't close it. I'm like, you can close it in like increments. And they're like, oh. I'm like, it's going to take the same amount of work. You're going to talk to the same amount of people. Ask them for a larger check. And so it's always good to get with people that have a little gray on the roof there, or have the experience. They can say, it's okay to do this. Can introduce you, whether it's a family office, a bank, a sovereign wealth fund, or a subsidiary of a sovereign wealth fund. And a lot of them don't get that. So yeah, we'll do that. That'll be a whole nother show.
I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to pull you up there, Stephen, because I don't have grey on the roof. I've got snow on my roof. Thank you very much.
You've got something on your roof. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
there you go.
So let's talk about Carl's book, because nobody wants to hear about investment banking.
No, it says he's an author of How to Live an Abundant ... So I'm not quite sure what the ... is.
This is a new thing for me. Being an author, I've lived a good life. I've had a fabulous life.
Is this another COVID problem that you solved?
No, but COVID allowed me to focus a little bit more on the book. It was a 3-year process, so it's not something that just kind of pops up overnight. And so I've always had a desire to write a book. And when I first was thinking about doing a book, I was thinking about the fact that there's nobody out there teaching what I did professionally, how to do professional services business development. I essentially created a category. When I got hired at Price Waterhouse Coopers, I was the first hire on the team. And literally the guy who hired me said, it's like I'm leading you into a dark room and I'm not giving you a flashlight and I'm not showing you the way out. You got to figure this out. And I said, that sounds kind of exciting. So I took the job and I figured it out. I figured out that selling audits wasn't about selling audits. Nobody wants to buy a freaking audit. Like, how boring is that, right? So, but they all want investor connections and I all want customer connections. So I was that guy because that firm happened to audit most of the big companies and most of the venture funds. And so I was able to connect the dots there. And so I was thinking about doing that, but then I realized that kind of the things that I did, that the giving more than you take, doing to others as you don't want to have them do unto you, all these things I practice in business also work at home, right? I have a happy family. I've got a wife and 5 kids. My kids still love me. My wife still loves me. Been married 29 years. I mean, something's working, right? And I've got a vibrant friend community, and not everybody has figured that out. And I can't say that I had it all figured out early in life, but as I've lived life, I realize I've learned a lot of lessons where I'm thriving in life today. And if I could go back and tell my younger self, these are the things you should have done back then, I would have lived a better life my entire life. So a lot of what's in the book is me taking people through my journey, right? I once was 40 pounds overweight. I now wear the same size clothes as I did in high school. I mean, that's a pretty good feat, right? And so I talk about how I did that, right? I mean, in the book, I don't get into my extreme exercise routines that I do now because most of America, most of the world, they don't want that, right? They're not going to do that. There's weeks where I walk 70 miles a week because I have a treadmill desk, but I didn't put that in the book because nobody's going to do that, right? But
I would do that. I'm a crazy guy like that because I don't know the definition or how to spell moderation. So I'm your type. I work out like a madman. I'm the same way. Like I can't run anymore because my doctor's like, you blew out your knees because you run too much. I run like 15, 20 miles a day, every day. Yeah. So I was like, he's like, you can't run. So I started to row. So I went from like 1,000 meters to like 20,000 meter rowing every day. And I blew out something else. He's like, can't do that. So now I'm on a different regimen. And he's like, my sports doctor's like, I'm just waiting for you to blow out something else. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like you. I'm very much, if I'm going to do it, you give 10,000%. And if you're not, you're useless. So you're right. Most of
Yeah, it's
America and the planet.
stopping running that's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it,
I
Steve?
know. So I
I
still
mean,
walk. My dog and I walk, and my dog hates me because I'm, come on, we're gonna go for our morning walk, and she looks at me like, oh God, she's like, I gotta bring water, I gotta bring food, I have to. It's an event, but I have to stay active. It's same with reading. I like to read like for hours and hours and hours. I mean, always got to
Can you
be
just
thinking or moving.
can you just tell me, Steve, as an investment banker, how you can have 10,000% of something?
It's easy because we make up the
Yeah.
numbers. Look at Goldman Sachs. It's very simple how it works.
Ah,
That's
right,
right.
right. It's one of those things, yeah. Because I
And
hear that a
also,
the
lot.
tread,
and just
I hear
Steve,
that a lot.
yeah,
the
People
treadmill
talking.
desk
I'll
was
go.
was the best purchase ever. If I weren't on this
yeah,
podcast right now, I'd be
right.
walking. I can't
You could have
stand
done the
sitting.
podcast. You could have done the podcast walking.
Yeah,
No, but I
that's
would be
fine.
bouncing up and down.
You guys
I
went like
look
this. How you
Yeah,
ridiculous. No, I do that on
yeah,
group Zoom calls, but not on one-on-one.
Not on interviews. Yeah, no.
yeah.
But I think that's very cool. I'm the same way. When I'm talking, not when we're interviewing, but I'll pace. If I don't have to look at you, I'm pacing, doing
Pacing,
things. And
turning
then
right
if
to
I'm
left,
zooming with
right to
someone,
left, right to left.
yeah,
Yeah,
constantly. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
we have the same ADD, MOUSE, all the things. We're very like I'll
yeah.
focus, but
And
I need to be moving. As we in Jewish we call it davening. I'm always swaying back and forth, right? So it's like I daven all the time in meetings, and people are like, "Sit down." I'm like, "No, I can't sit. If you
well,
don't want
what
me
is that?
sitting."
I've always wondered. I've been to the what we call the Wailing Wall. I know
Sure,
that's
that's
not
what we
what they
call it
call it.
too.
But
I mean,
what is it when they do this in front of the wall? I've never known
wailing.
what that was.
it's just davening. It's the way it's almost like
Yeah.
a cadence for prayer.
Okay.
But
And I'm like a
what
fake
you
Jew. I'm not like a real one with the pay socks and
yeah.
all the other stuff, and I don't rap tefillin
And of course,
anymore. But that's it.
what we don't
Yeah.
know because we're not Jewish, because we can't hear the very subtle heavy metal music which is being played in the background.
Yes,
So
the
everybody's
ACDC that
literally
comes out of the wall.
banging
Yes,
their head
that's right.
against the wall. So
That's right. That's
that's what
right.
it is.
So, but no.
Special.
But anyway, back to
Yeah.
the book. So, an abundant life. So, you exercise crazy. I can relate to. So far, everything you're saying, I relate to. And so, it took you 3 years to write it. So, when you wrote it, was it more of I'm writing it for the world, or am I writing it because it's stuff that's in me that I need to get out?
Yeah. Need to get it out of your head.
Yeah, kind of both, right? It
Okay.
was it was both, and the reason for the 3 years that it was done in two, and then
Okay.
my oldest daughter Teresa, she likes to go by the nickname Twee. She got a hold of the
Okay.
book when we were on vacation one summer. She goes, "Dad, I read a ton of self-help books. Let me take a look at this
Right.
because I know what people like." And she said, "And Dad, you've got to be willing to kill your baby." She said. I'm like, "Oh, I can't kill my baby. I spent 2 years writing this thing,"
Right.
and so she got all of it. She's you got to kill
Out
about
with the
30
marker
of this
pen.
book.
Out with the marker pen. Whoop, have some
Yeah,
of this.
she
Now,
she
kids are
helped me
brutal, aren't they?
kill
Kids are
yeah
brutal.
kill about a third of it, and she was right
Wow.
because there was still a lot of the business stuff in there, and
Right.
and she said, "Look, I'm an introvert. I she has an e-commerce business. She's not. She doesn't have like I've done business development my entire life. You've got to go out and talk to people. Investment bankers got to go out and talk to people. Like she goes, I don't relate to this stuff. People like me don't relate to this stuff. And she said, you want this to be read by people like me? You want it to be read by a stay-at-home mom, somebody who's retired? And I'm like, yes, of course. She goes, then take all this garbage out of it because it doesn't apply to them. And so I
Right.
said, you're right. As hard as it was, I let her just take an axe to the thing, and then I had to rewrite good portions. It's a lot shorter. It's a lot shorter now than it was, right?
Right.
It's probably the right length. I mean, because
Okay.
I've been told people don't want to read the 400-page book. So this is like 100. I don't know what it is, 160, 170 pages. It's not very
Right.
long. You can read it, on a couple flights. You take a flight to someplace and back. You can finish the book. I finished it.
Yeah.
I've had to read it so many times because I edited the thing that I read it on a weekend.
But
Right,
you're
right. No.
assuming, of course, Grant, that it's available at every kiosk, bookshop kiosk at every airport in the US. Is that
Not
right? So
yet. Not yet. It's
Ah.
going to. So right now it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble,
Okay.
and then it's my one of my other daughters. I have 5 kids. I put them to work, so I have to.
That's what you have
to
kids for.
reread this thing to make sure there aren't. So they have a proof that they send to print on demand for the retailers. So it's going to go
Right.
to the
Yeah.
book, the retailers. But so she's reading it for me because she's a perfectionist, and so I gave
Okay.
her a hard copy of the book, and I gave her their version of it. I said, just make sure their version is the same as the hard copy. Just check back and forth. So she's doing that for me. And then once I do that, it'll go to the retailers as well. And then the audio book just got finished over this weekend. So that'll be coming out as well. I did it myself. So, I always, whenever I listen to it, I'm an audiobook guy. I unlike you, Steve, I just can't sit still. I mean, it's really hard for me. So I'm always going. And so, I'm listening to books while I'm exercising, while I'm doing things, while I'm flying to Pakistan on Thursday. I got to have a lot of content. That's a long flight, right? Yes. And so I'm already picking out, podcasts and things I'm going to listen to, maybe some books.
You've come to the right station for that. We've got loads.
I was going to say, if you're bored, we've got enough podcasts for you. No, I go to the UAE a lot. So I read a lot of my flights. So I'll read but I like books that are I just finished the book called The World. It's 1,300 pages. And my wife was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's like a weekend read. I take a cigar and a scotch. I sit outside and I will talk about how many cigars I go through. But anyway, I read my books and I'm just like, yeah, it's chill. It's like my 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 hour mini holiday. And I like to read my books that way. It's just a very thing. And in the airplanes, it's just, I read because then I don't have to talk to people. Because I have to be such a
it's you,
extrovert.
It's you I keep sitting next to.
That's true. I have to be an extrovert everywhere I'm at. Every conference, I've got to be like, hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And when I'm on an airplane, I'm like, listen, don't talk to. I'm going to read. And then you do get the one person up in the front of the bus who will start talking to you, except on the internationals, of course, where you have your own little suite. Then they can't. Then it's the flight attendants. And I'm like, okay. So, it's like when everybody's sleeping, I get to read and I feel bad because I'm waking people up with my light, but I'm like, I don't care. It's the only time I have to read because I can't sleep. So,
well, I was planning to do what you do and not talk to anyone, but I had a forensic psychologist sitting next to me cool. I was sitting in business class and this guy started chatting me up and he was so freaking interesting. I mean, the stuff that he has gone out, he's like, I watch Dateline. I love Dateline. He was like the guy investigating all these sicko people out there that did all these heinous things. And I just couldn't stop listening to him. And so the guy was chatty. And in fact, I was asleep and he was still talking to me. And apparently I was talking to him in my sleep. So
nice. Yeah, I know. But see, if someone's interesting next to me and we start talking, I will talk. But how some people are like, hey, where are you going? What? I'm like, calm down. Let's I try to get to the crux of what they are. And you can usually tell. I sat next to a guy a while ago who owned a mega real estate company and we've become friends. Really, it's like we just sat and I'm like, okay. And there's some people you sit next to and it's like, yeah, no. And they just go like, I don't care that you played high school football. We're good. So, you can, it's a kind of a feel. And I always tell people when you travel for business, especially try to fly in the front of the bus because that's where you'll make your contacts or at the lounge. And there's a lot of businesses. It'll be like, oh, we fly all employees like economy plus. I'm like, really? And especially international, I'm like, you're an idiot. Use a wholesaler, let them fly in the front of the bus, and you don't know who you're going to meet. I mean, I was on a trip, my last trip to Dubai. I literally was sitting next to a guy. We started talking. He's a VC in healthcare. I know the guys that want to actually make an investment in it, and you put them together. And it was like, boom. And I'm like, you don't know who you're going to meet in the front of the bus on an international flight or at the lounge because everybody's friendly. Because it's just, you're in a tube for 20 hours.
Could you explain to me what economy plus is? Because that's just
we call it cattle. So the way airplanes work, there's something called cattle, cattle plus. Then there's front of the bus, and then there's super front of the bus, right? So that's economy plus, business class, and then first class.
But what's economy plus? It's all crap.
I don't know. I'm going to find out on this flight. One of my seats is economy plus. I've never sat in it before, but Steve,
it's basically first class. But the seats are a little, so basically it's a first class seat that's a little, butt room is a little larger and the leg room's a little larger. So in the States, flying on a 3 or 4 hour flight, economy, or if we like to call it cattle plus, is okay. But what I did find out here, travel tips, the lady at Delta told me many years ago, she goes book one way in the States. Instead of round trip, she said you can find cheaper flights. And I literally flew from Palm Beach to Los Angeles first class for $250 and cattle was $450. And she said, if you book them that way, she said, you will find an array on any airline of better first class and whatever. And I didn't know that. So now it's when I do that. Now, when I travel international, I have a wholesaler. And I'm like, he goes, you may have to, I don't care. Lay me over 10 times, but I can fly in front of the bus round trip for what an economy plus ticket would cost somebody.
Well,
And I'm
I'll
okay
get
with
some
that.
travel trips from you
Yeah.
because I've been doing a lot of trips lately, and when I'm not in business class,
Yep.
I'm not happy. It's because you can
Well,
lay down and go to sleep. You know, they get some of these Qatar airlines. They have your own private little room. Oh,
I know.
it
I
is
flew Qatar
so
the
nice.
last time. Let me tell you how great Qatar is. And we're talking about it. It still goes to the book, but here's how great Qatar Airline is. I flew from Doha to Abu Dhabi, right? It's a 22-minute flight, front of the bus, because it's for the whole trip. I get there, they pillows and blankets for a 22-minute flight, and the lady says, "Would you like dinner?" Now I'm starving because I said, "Sure." In the 22 minutes, there's only four of you in the front of the bus. I got dinner, a drink, whatever. They couldn't have been nicer. And as we're descending, they take my and put it, and I was like, "Wow." Let me tell you, Qatar Airlines, front of the bus is like the best. And next trip we're flying Emirates, and they are just as well. They're like Singapore Air.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm 6'1", sitting in cattle plus on an international flight. Yeah, I need to stretch out, or I'm not a happy camper, and I need to be a happy camper when I get off the airplane. So yeah,
So there you go. So that's
trips to
volume
use.
2 then of how to live an abundant life.
Abundant life, yes. How to use a wholesaler when you
Okay.
fly international. But yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
so
that's
your
it's a
good
kids are
hard,
information.
it's a hard life for all those
it's a hard.
people
I
that
know. Yes,
that
I know.
that are stuck at home
Listen,
and can't go
I
anywhere. It's a
say this
hard
to
life.
everybody. I put my pants on just like everybody else. Each of my gentlemen hold a leg, and then they zip me up and put my belt on. I think everybody has that.
Yeah,
We do that in the
yeah,
East Wing, and then I come to the West Wing to
yeah.
record.
Or as a friend of
So
mine used to say, "What a poor people! I've never met one." So there you go.
yeah, I don't know what that is. Anyway, so now
Yeah.
Carl, I'm sorry, I'm going to call him Cary Grant. But so Carl, tell me, you have one daughter who is an introvert who tore apart the book because she reads a bunch of self-help books, who's in e-commerce. You have the other daughter who apparently isn't, and she's ready to just tear it apart. So now the book is ready. So how long has the book been out, and how's it doing, and what will people get from the book?
Well, so it launched on December 12th. And,
Okay.
unfortunately, I was in Saudi Arabia when it launched. So I wasn't
Right.
able to do much proper promotion, but I was happy that it got out before Christmas.
Right.
And so how on Amazon, they'll have all these micro um, categories. So
Yep.
it hit number one in some of those micro categories, not really categories. It wasn't like number one in self-help, but it was,
Right.
faith-based categories and so forth,
Oh,
because
nice.
there's a component to that, and so it was nice to see it do that. And I haven't been back to, I haven't had time to go back and see how many copies have sold and so forth, but people are reading it. It's kind of cool when you go to an event, or like go to church or go wherever,
Right.
and people say, "Oh, I read your book. I really liked your book." That's rewarding. And so I've had that a number of times now. And then I've seen the reviews. Knock wood, it's gotten all 5-star reviews so far.
Nice.
And I recognize some of the names of people who reviewed them. So that's kind of cool. These are people.
Well, at least five of the children, So no, but
No,
yeah.
the
So
children have not reviewed the book.
they've not reviewed it. So I read some of it, and then I was skimming through it. I was like, this is very interesting. So talk about the faith base. And once again, the people that have watched our channel know that we make fun of every religion. So we won't make fun of it because we're asking you to. But if you were a guy with a dog collar, you'd be dead. So, but so tell us about the faith-based part of the book for people that are actually interested in that part. I mean, and you don't have to be religious to read the book. I read it. It was like, oh, it's a normal book. It's just, there's little inklings. So the faith-based part, how do you do that? What do you tell people? What are you trying to not push them towards, but how do you help them look at that?
Well, so the interesting thing is, Steve, honestly, the first draft of the book, I didn't put it in there. It wasn't in there. There was I dropped it at the end,
Okay.
and then when I went back and when I was doing this full scale rewrite with my daughter, I'm like, I'm not being true to myself. Like, I've got to put in there who I am, because this, it's not just something I put in the back of the book. It's something that I live throughout my life, and so I spent half of my life as an atheist, just a flat out atheist. It's kind of weird growing up in America, right? Where you can spend half your life. Nobody mentions God. Nobody prays.
Right.
Nobody goes to church. I grew up in Reston, Virginia, and it's this utopian plain community. They forgot to put a graveyard in Reston, the great planners.
I lived in Middleburg for a while, so I know exactly where you lived.
Yeah, the irony is, of course, gentlemen, you've got it written on your money, haven't you? In God we
What, in God we trust? It depends what God you're referring. It depends what God you're referring to.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really. Yeah, well, so it's always there. Even for the ultimate breadhead, it's always there every time you get the green ones out of your pocket. You're being confronted with a form of faith. Yeah?
Well, it's on there, but I never really thought about it. I mean, like when you're just going through life, it's not nothing I did related to it at all. And so it was at the age of 24, and I do have a chapter in the book called Growing Spiritually, and I even put at the beginning of the chapter, if you're not interested in it, skip this chapter. But I talk about how my life radically changed. I didn't know what I was missing. It was like a blind spot for me. And so at the age of 24, the way I was living my life, when you have no guardrails on your life, you just do what you want to do. And so I was a young guy and I was doing what I wanted to do. I'm not proud of some of the stuff I did, but you get to reflecting like, okay, I'm 24 years old. At some point I want to get married. And is the best way to meet your future wife, the mother of your children, trying to get her in bed in the first 5 minutes when you meet her? Probably not. Problem was I was so caught up in my way of living that when I tried to make changes, I was highly unsuccessful. It seemed like, sorry if this is too much information, guys, but
you're good.
It seemed like every time I tried to do the right thing, it became a challenge for the kind of women I was attracting into my life. And so, and then when I got the news that my brother woke up one morning and found his live-in girlfriend had a baby and he didn't even know she was pregnant. That was like a lightning bolt. I mean, like, holy crap, like it can be consequences to the way I'm behaving. And also when I was in ROTC and somebody tested positive for HIV, I'm like, gosh, maybe I need to change my life. And it was really on an army trip down to Panama when this is kind of a funny story. I don't know if you got to this part, Steve, but I'm heading out. You guys are old enough, being old farts, self-proclaimed old farts. We had invaded Panama and we tossed out Noriega. And so all the units were kept on post. And so when I went down to Panama after the invasion, we were the first unit to stay off of post. We were in a hotel, the Caribe Hotel downtown, and the Panamanians were happy to see us because they wanted that American money, going through their economy. And so I'm walking out of the hotel with a group of soldiers. I said, what are you guys doing tonight? And they said, I was the only officer in the group. There were no other officers. They said, well, sir, we're going to pursue these prostitutes over here. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not really, I never had to, I never had to go for a prostitute, and it didn't seem like a good thing to do. And
never had to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to this other guy, Wayne, he was from Mississippi, who was connected to our unit for training that week. I said, Wayne, what are you doing? And he said, well, I saw some lights out the window down the street, and I think they're having a church service over there. And I literally, prostitutes or church, or go back to my room. And I wanted to go out because, how many times you get to go out and see a foreign country like that? So I said, well, Wayne, I think I'm going to go with you. And so I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I hadn't really gone to church. I think I'd gone to Sunday school with my grandma once when I was little. And I think my parents took me to an Easter service, but I didn't like the music, so we never went back. And so that was like all I knew of church. And this was not a church like we would picture a church. These were poor people, right? They had tattered clothes. It was like a dirt floor, like a sheet metal roof held up by sticks. And these people were carrying on and singing. And I had, in Spanish, I had no idea what was going on. And I'm standing in there and I'm nervous. I'm literally having thoughts like, are they going to sacrifice me? I didn't know what these people were going to do. Like, I didn't know, this wasn't my world. Right. And so I'm nervous. And as I'm standing there, this wind blew. It came from where the congregation was, and it blew right through me. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I looked at Wayne. I said, Wayne, did you feel that? And he said, yeah, I did. And I'm like, wow. And so I had no reference point as to what happened. And so there was a black gentleman there who looked like an American, had a Navy hat. I said, "Are you from the States?" And he said, "I am." I said, "What is this?" He says, "It's kind of like a U.S. Baptist church," which meant nothing to me. It meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So, so this is the part where I address this in the book. I get back home from this Army trip, and I'm looking forward to going back to the same garbage that I was into before, right? And it was right there in front of me, and I was about to indulge. And you know what? For the first time, I ran away. I didn't do it. And I realized something had happened in that little church. And so later on, I started going to church. When I got back to school, I was in grad school. I started going to church. I didn't know what church to go to. So I went to 2 a.m. and I finally, I wandered into a place where the love that people had for one another was so overwhelming. I don't know if you ever walked into a place and like these were not normal people. I had old people making me dinners. I had young girls baking me cookies, and it was the nicest thing in the world. And so I could hang out with these people. And so I started going there, and there was a woman who lived across the street from me who saw me going to church, a college age girl. And she would talk to me about God. And, I didn't, she asked me if I was a believer. I said, I don't know, I wasn't, but she was. And so she was interesting to me. And then one day I'm talking to her, and she had her atheist friend. Her name was Anne. Her atheist friend Mandy was standing there with us. She's a redhead. And the second and only time it's ever happened, guys, that wind blew again. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. And Anne says to me, she goes, "That is the Holy Spirit." And I didn't know what that was, but she did. And to make this very real, Mandy, the atheist girl, burst out crying hysterically. And I'm like, whoa, this stuff is real. Like, this is real, And, I didn't know anything. I never read the Bible. I didn't know anything about anything. But when the God of the universe reaches down and touches you twice, it gets your attention. And so I went back to the church, and that next time the pastor was up there preaching, and he quoted Jesus. He said, "He who acknowledges me before man, I will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But he who disowns me before man, I will disown before my Father in heaven." I didn't know, I don't know how I knew what to do because I'd never done this before, but I got up out of my seat and I walked forward. Nobody had ever done this in front of me. I said, I need to acknowledge him. And that was that point right there. That changed my life because I was handed a Bible and I started reading it, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, everything I ever believed was wrong. And from that point, I realized that, there were words in there that hit me like freaking lightning bolts. Like he who wishes to be first must be last and servant of all. Oh, like words like that just cut to my heart. And it just started changing the way I treated people, the way I interacted with people. And so from age 24 on, my life has changed. I'm not perfect. None of us are. We're not, but I actually met the woman I married, and I actually dated her for 3 years, and I wasn't with her until I married her. And that's
very nice.
If you would have known the way I lived my life, I was a whoremonger. I mean,
we all are. Come on.
Right? I mean, but from that time that wind blew through me in Panama, I mean, I wasn't a perfect angel, but there was one thing I didn't do, and I didn't do that until I got married 4 years later. So not everybody's going to do that. That was my story. There was one burning bush. There was one ark. There was one, but that was a major change in my life. And so when it comes to my finances, I put God first in my finances. I put him first in everything. And because of that, I've lived an abundant life. And so when you see the word abundance in the book, and I'll get off, you asked me about the faith thing. So
that's okay. You're doing fine.
But abundance is not in the possessions that we accumulate, right? I mean, yes, I have stuff. I have jet skis. I enjoy them. I have stuff. I enjoy my stuff, but that's not the abundance I'm talking about. I'm talking about abundance in life, in relationships, in community, in all aspects of life, finding a purpose in life, right? And I take in the book, I talk about purpose. I talk about a sound mind. Who doesn't want a sound mind, right? And so, and not all of it is not all of this is about the faith. There's a faith component to it, but
Right.
sometimes in finding a purpose in life, so many people walk around, they're like, why am I here? They
Right.
think they were a mistake and so forth. And so I
Well,
talk
most
about
were.
little.
There's 8 billion people. So let's just say half were mistakes. The other 4 billion, they're here with a purpose. So,
but I talk about finding purpose in what you're doing today.
right.
And then the way I found, like, that business development job I took,
Right.
I wasn't looking for that job. In fact, when they called me for it, I almost didn't want it. When they told me they're going to pay me more than I was making at my other job, I said, okay, I'll do
Right.
that. But had I not listened to the person who called me and stepped into that, I spent
Mhm.
25 years doing business development. And you know what? I was pretty good at it. And
Yep.
now I'm going out and I'm consulting and teaching people how to do this stuff, right? But I had to listen to somebody else. Or public speaking. I am going to be going to a conference. There's 50,000 people attending this conference that I'm going
Wow.
to on Thursday, and I'm going to
Right.
be speaking. If you would have asked me to do that in my early 20s, I
Right.
was terrified to speak in front of a group. But you know
Right.
what? When you step out of your comfort zone and you do it, because I had to do it in grad school, they make you
Yeah.
do it, And when
Yep.
people would say, "You're a pretty good speaker," you know that, and then you do it again and you hear it again, and you're like, "Okay, there's people I respect telling me I'm good at this. Maybe I'm good
Right.
at this, right?" And then now I'm speaking in front of massive crowds,
That's awesome.
and so that it's sometimes you've got to listen to others to find your purpose, and that's not intuitive to everyone, right? And so maintaining a sound mind is another thing I
Yeah.
talk about. Just think about how many of us just sit and have negative thoughts, and we and I did for most of my life, and
Right.
you think you don't have control of it, but who else controls what goes on in your mind but you,
True. Yeah.
right? And so if you're spending your life scrolling through Twitter, now X, and looking at people hurting people, and or
Yep.
or you have a nonstop diet of watching pornography or whatever it is you're putting into that brain, if you're filling your brain with a bunch of garbage and you're dwelling on that garbage, then
Mhm.
you're gonna have a garbage result, right? Like, what you
Correct.
think determines what you say, which ultimately determines what happens in your life, right? And I
And that's what
believe
people
that.
don't, but people don't understand that. They don't understand it's garbage in, garbage out. But also, you're the one who wakes up first thing in the morning, and you could say, I'm going to have a great day or a crappy day, right? So you
Yeah.
determine your day. If I go wake up in the morning, as David knows, I wake up and say, how many Gentiles can we kill today? No, I'm just kidding. I wake up and go, what are we going to do today? What are we going to, like, this is a day we're going to do this. And you just go and you just take the day. And I know a lot of people that wake up and go, I'm tired. I'm like, really? Then just die. Like you're
Yeah.
useless. That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean,
Out of 8 billion
the
people,
bottom
half, not so much. So, but
the
you've got to
bottom
kick in
line is,
doors.
yeah, the bottom line is, I had I also went through I think everybody goes through these dark periods in their life, and there were two things that really helped me in that. One was, the Winston Churchill talking about the black dog that came and sat next to him, and
Mhm.
that kind of that enabled me to think, okay, so it's not just me, and it means that these bad periods come towards me, but they also leave me, and I found that really comforting. And then somebody said to me, "You're the only person who can get out of bed in the morning. I can't get you out of bed."
It's
And
true.
it's fundamental as that. All those really days where you think there's nothing, yes, that why, you're the only person who can get out of bed,
Yeah.
and it's so simple. And there are a lot of people in this world who are purposeless. Well, yeah, get up, do something, look around you, be open towards things.
You can
So
be your own
it'll find
purpose.
you.
Yeah. Well,
It will
we tell
find you.
people, you have to kick in the door and go forward. Don't go up, don't go down, don't go left, don't go right, don't go
Yeah,
backwards.
keep
You
moving
always
forward.
go forward. You kick in that door. And if you start your day every way that way, it'll be the most positive day that you can have, because it's the
Yeah.
same thing as you're saying. There's a purpose. Now, whether you believe in something or you don't, it's a whole nother dialogue and a whole nother discussion. Like, as you may or may not know, the CIA did their Gateway report. They talk about the absolute. So the absolute in theory would be God. So it depends on what you want to believe, right? So we call the book The Fable because it's missing 14 other books, but I like the book. I understand the premise. So as long as you believe in something, right? I don't care if you believe in this pen, believe in something, and if that's your thing, then you go do it, right? Because everybody's God's a little different, and that's fine. Atheism, I don't get. Like that's to me, it's a horrible thing to go, there's nothing, I'm going to die. Yeah, I'm not good with that.
I was there,
So
dude.
that,
I can't see.
yeah, no, I
I lived
understand,
it.
right?
I know.
So to
Yeah.
me, it's like I want to believe. I saw my belief may be a little off, whatever, but it's my belief, and it makes me happy, gets me through. So it's my way, if you will, live abundantly. So I'm good with that. So I never criticize anybody's anything. We make fun of them because I make fun of what I do. But at the end of the day, you have to get up with a purpose. You have to kick in that door and go forward. When I mentor people, they go, "Well," I go, "Just kick in the door," and they look at me like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Go. What's the worst thing? You make a mistake, we can fix it. If you don't do anything and you
Yeah.
just sit there and you're stagnant, I can't fix stagnate. You know what I mean? Like you can't fix
Yeah.
nothing. I can fix if there's a mistake. If you do something, what did you do? Okay, well, next time do this. Oh, okay. But people don't do that. And
Yeah.
I think today they don't have mentors, whether faith or no faith. People just don't have anything because, to your point, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, 30-second shorts, mind is mush. Go to China and watch all that stuff. What are they saying? Doctor, lawyer, here's how you build like a nuclear power plant. Here's how you do quantum computing. In America, we know you're stupid. We're going to give you stupid stuff. So to me, it's like you have to really focus on X. And I've been focused since I'm an embryo. So to me, I don't get why people don't focus. So I've always kicked in the door and always done that. So I like your book because it hopefully will help people that don't understand how to do that. And the faith side, believe in what you want. As long as you're happy with it and you're not killing anybody, yeah, I think that's good. I don't care if you believe in your chair. If you think your chair is a powerful thing, great. I'm glad your chair is a powerful thing, but go and do. But I don't think people do that anymore. I think it's all chasing the Kardashians, unfortunately.
But again, some people have a, I used to have that with the sales people I was training, and they couldn't understand some of the stuff you were trying to say to them. So you say, "Oh, have you ever played pool? Have you ever played snooker or billiards?"
Right.
And they go, "Yeah, of course we have. Yeah, because of course we have." I say, "Okay. So what happens when you hit that cue ball? What happens? It moves forward, and then it hits something, and then when it hits something, something else happens." And that's all you've got to create in life. Don't stand there with a cue in your hand and think it's all going to happen magically. You just have to put that effort, a little bit of effort in, and push it forward. And like Steve says, great, we love mistakes because it's a learning process. If you're in a comfortable environment where you can share the mistake, it's okay to make mistakes. It's not okay for some chump to start shouting at you because he thinks he's better than you because you made a mistake. That's how you ruin people. But we're sitting down with people and saying, "Hey, okay, all right, so let's go through the process. What did you do? What would you not do next time if the same circumstances arrived?" A form of mentorship. And I think a lot of people are lost today in this world because they don't have mentors. I think that in whatever form that you can find people that are prepared to spend time with you and just to help you, even if it's like just one step forward. Yeah, go and look for them, talk to people.
And I address a lot of that in the book about developing relationships and being part of a community. It's really important. It's important to your health and your well-being to be part of a community. So I talk about those types of relationships. I also talk about setting goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Steve, you seem like a really driven guy, right? You always setting goals for things. Life is so much more exciting when you find an impossible goal and you say, I want to do that. So some of the examples I give in the book is nobody in my family is a pilot, but I wanted to fly airplanes. And it seems like an impossible thing to do, but if you find a goal like that and you just have bite-sized, tasks to get you towards that goal, you got to pass that written test. I passed it twice because it took me a long time to get the license. You got to solo, and then you got to do your cross countries and you work your way up. And although it took me like 25 years to get my pilot's license, I got it.
All right.
I did it.
Did you get now? I did that many years ago. I went to flight safety out of Vero Beach though. So I did it during the summer. I was like, and I got up to multi-engine, which is very cool.
Wow.
So I really enjoyed that. So to me, it was very cool. And then as I got older, I didn't have the time, but I liked it. And now I look back and I go, when I flew, we used like a map and we used the thing, and it was like you had to know stuff. Now I have friends who fly and we get into their, it's a multi-engine or a jet, and they're like, "Whoa, you want to see how we fly? Click, 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 we're done." I'm like, "Really? What about this? What about, we don't use that." Like the stuff I use, I still have my stuff and my little logbook.
Me too.
And I'm like, this is the stuff I used to use to fly. And you look at that and you would think I was in a horse and buggy. That's how old it is
I
when
did
I
the same
started
way as
flying.
you, Steve. I did the
Okay,
same
I
way as
started
you.
in, I flew in the 70s. My late 70s
That's
is when I got my
because
pilot's license.
Stephen, that's because you're an old fart. That's because you're an old
That's
fart, mate. You haven't.
I was here when the
they
earth
made
cooled.
they when I went into to restart my pilot
Right.
training, they had to show my logbook around the airport because my last log was
Right.
1989, and
Okay.
I was starting it back up in 2011, and they were like,
Yeah.
look at this,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
Yeah.
but I got it, and you know, and another one, you know, it was impossible for me to get into Harvard when I was a kid. I didn't apply myself,
Right.
but you know
Right.
what? Most of the people in the venture capital world, they either went to
Right.
Harvard or Stanford, right? I mean, that's the world.
Yep.
And on the East Coast, where I was for most of my life, most of them were Harvard. And
Yep.
I got to thinking, you know, I wonder if I could go to Harvard. And so I found a venture capital and private equity program, and I
Right.
figured out how to get myself admitted. Even got my
Right.
company to pay for it. I went to freaking Harvard, you know. I mean, so
Nice.
there's no reason you can't set bold, audacious
goal.
goals
Right.
and meet them, right?
Yep.
I wrote a
I
book.
agree.
A book is impossible. It's impossible. I thought about it for years, but now it's behind me, right? Now I'm
Right.
talking to you guys about it. Like
Right.
life is so much more exciting when you set goals and you work your way towards them. Some of them they might take you 20 years, but you know what? You're at least working towards it. It's at least something you're going to try to achieve.
Right. But you know what the
Well,
nice thing
I
about the
got-
goal is when you complete it, you have that self thing like, wow. Like I have, if they're not millions, but I have my goals. So when I complete one, like my wife will say, well, you just completed that goal. What I'm like, uh-huh. She goes, what's that? Oh, I said, oh, one, I got 7,000. So just because I did one,
Yeah.
there's number two, there's number three, they just move up and they just move up. But every day I'm going
our
for
goal-
all of them.
And our goal,
So-
Carl, is to this sort of wacky hobby thing that Stephen and I started. We're going
Which is
to
a
build
business.
an entertainment. We're going to build an entertainment channel,
And you
And
you're
why?
here.
Because-
You are.
because-
It's here.
and because everybody says that it's mad and we can't do it.
This is all David. I just sit here and look pretty all day, but he's the one that wants to build an empire, and I'm just helping him build his empire. So not bad.
And David, are you in the
Yeah.
UK?
No, I'm in Holland. I've been here 40 years in Holland.
Okay.
And he used to be a woman, so who knew?
Yeah,
there you
go. Wow. Well, allegedly.
All right, Carl. Before we say goodbye, once again, the name of your book, even though we already know it, is.
How to Live the Abundant Life.
I thought we were going to stump him. I got a little nervous, and it's by Carl Grant III. You can buy it on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles online, and soon, hopefully, and the audio will be out soon. Hopefully, it will be in hard copy everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what we're going for?
In the Sunday Times top 10 books, and the business book top 10, it'll all be there.
There you go.
Why?
see.
Because
We
you
shall
want
see.
it. Because you want it to be, Carl.
Yep.
There you go.
And no, because really, let's just be honest, because he was on our show.
Yeah.
Same thing we told Brown Car Guy.
You know,
The reason
I
he got
wasn't
6
gonna say-
million. So
I wasn't going to say
Brown-
that, Steve. You know, but
I
you
know.
know, what can I say?
Why is Brown Car Guy's book successful? Is on our show, and he also
Yeah,
has a
because we
show on
promote-
our channel. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, actually too.
Yeah.
Carl, it's a pleasure. Stay with us. David will do some housekeeping after the credits. Don't forget, it's called How to Live an Abundant Life. It's written by Carl Grant III. If you're listening on the podcast, we'll have links below. If you can't figure it out because it's too difficult, come over to the YouTube channel, Two Old Farts Making Noises. Look under 2OF Classics, and we'll have all the information there so you can buy Carl's book. Carl, thank you so much this morning for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Had fun. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
David, take us home.